Boy, John Den, Dijin, Shivan, Rajan Boy, Yantobo, Zubizan, Riva, Don, Shasu, Demba, Deva, Shiban, Juden, Jam, Jubu, Dian, Kalo, Jo, Lana, Miba, Lado, Menon, Demba, Sanje, John Den, Pejawa, Jaja, Dubo, La, Shansen, Chodo, Josu, Je, Kanzi, Zo, Chedanzi, Sachen, Dena, Komba, Dembo, Mani, Jiden, Dena, Joje, Son, Dizi, Kema, Chola, Shanzi, Nanda, Gama, Chodo, Zozo, Yeshe, Janzo, Sije, Lembo, Draba, Jiden, Sona, Lange, Gombo, Chuni, Chola, Shanzi, 千秋颠簸，直面大月照，千多周望，去罗相随。对着见着西波松摩揭，两面全点，去罗相随。广播杜鹃切颠簸，当切切别颠簸。色那夜颠交足结，地界显拉相随。大别的家之我见，夜别个松列者。 基督的道求救我，先觉成了相存。这年正月老阳的，老婆到了手头，先给当婆也得得，跟对老阳相存。对我这样们交心，给我别送错过。让给三年要说的，这年上的的包。 伽摩罗热摩面当，觉摩色我觉摩，面那罗多真道不，都些觉那得道，色那地狱当起自波耶，国王当年觉觉着的，嘎当那当起月老主，随便错的着我着我哟。
Thus I have heard. At one time, the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of Vulture Peak Mountain, with a great gathering of monks and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was absorbed in the samadhi of the many aspects of samadhi called profound appearance. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son of a lineage train who wishes to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom? Thus he spoke, and the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva answered the Venerable Sharadvatiputra with these words. Shariputra, those men and women of the lineage who wish to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom should look at it like this. The five skandhas should be seen purely in their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form also is not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are emptiness, and having no characteristics, they are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no phenomena. There is no quality of sight and so on until no quality of mind and no quality of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance, and so on, up to no old age and death, and no exhaustion of old age and death. In the same way, there is no suffering, no origin, no ending, and no path. No wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide by means of the profound perfection of wisdom. And since their minds have no obscurations, they have no fear. Transcending falsity, they attain nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times have relied upon the perfection of wisdom and have become true and complete Buddhas of unsurpassable, perfect, and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the profound perfection of wisdom, the mantra of insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, The mantra which calms all suffering should be known as truth, for it is not deceptive. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is proclaimed. Teata om gate gate paragate parasam gate bodhi soha. Shariputra, this is how a bodhisattva mahasattva should train the profound perfection of wisdom. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and said to the bodhisattva mahasattva noble Avalokiteshvara that he had spoken well. Well done, O son of the lineage, it is so. O son of the lineage, since it is just so, the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Sharadvati Putra and noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, and the entire gathering, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One.
Dozo gyunla duji dozi yana zhuji yangde song. Doda chido nimo nino leji zhadu zhuzi jin. Mari minsi dongi nyungu chini junzi rizhu. Dani doji saji dozi yudi lizu jasi duyu. Jodo Juni Dim Dali Mese Jabe Yana Di Ara Baza Nadi Ara Baza Nadi Ara Baza Nadi Zedin Juju Chera Luzeju Dali Dimo Mimba Rasene Katan Tenju Jolo Doba Ye Lojo Bobe No 有周边波动的上，娘的心路居了所望的，上波同面一年闹着的，秋的对月的当周边的，三上过上六年四年么，家境是别居了所望的，娘人与面兄弟路着呢。大我这波这边可就上街公众跑跑要在说，上门大院去了昨晚的，协助当兵全俺的想，嘎当电兵民不中的的，年就那些过去送了送，嘎当那么那了昨晚的。看见新的世界中啊，我到这边我修建造的，我这边到不给着的，要是就把这那说完的，就算过的那么多的长，看了看的心里之中的，却当天幕公主自在。春节了嘛，那了说完的，上交苏州跟了大爷们，给上淘宝这边用啊求，这边这边他给这把爷，现在新年那了说完的，叫我更多养到那么多。这边就这边了，弄学去，撒到弄就应的肉做呢，多就强给个，人多一手上的就当做的就那，想就不多大年就做去，老给去这边说那。着了平时上街如不修上街就出去就那将就不多大年就大给去这边错那街着了平时上街如不修上街就出去就那将就不多大年就大给去这边错那街罗罗平时上街周班哟，哎哎呀，他们对这那么这个嘛，没事个缺陷是给，然后呢，家境的这样，上学的这那边过来样，可多嘛，就那给他的那边生活条件的作为，大家那个作为上街光光他们，也觉得当地区什么3年的跟了跟修的人吧，那也把3到的生把修3年多下个嘞，最近家境人了，他们是得是有点这些，但是就有啊。
So normally it is a tradition of the teacher would actually reminds followers or the disciples to listen to Dharma with the pure motivation of gaining the state of enlightenment for the benefit of all other sentient beings. So this will be reminded by the teacher normally.
当然就今年这东啊，这是广西的人家都是这样，这是偏多也了，那是那人看的呢，让人了解那看的呢，当时你是那边些就让那的周边，你等不图样不去说的，你对你了，你哪里这边那么那就过就没把接受是的，的确教育看的是的呢，肯定是到小孩的过，但一年过了我说个教育啥呢？但用的查吧是那的，那边送进是那的。但逻辑是那的，现在开始讲的嘛，讲呢，我这个就是得到的哇。
孔雀就是可以从的。
最近我说，最近个前天我这个定的了，就是到那些的，初级没把些到是那老的，你我这个最近两年开始讲那样，你讲着的嘛，这话的两年见面完以后呢，你就是到个别天气么了，这一点的，那个可能上呢，肯定呢，我就觉得。
So, as I always emphasize on the visualization of the refuge field in the beginning of the teachings, because the reason why I'm reminding all of you to visualize that is to familiarize yourself with taking refuge in three jewels. That is the purpose why I actually remind all of you to visualize Buddha Shakyamuni in front of oneself and before oneself, surrounded by all other lineage, Lam Rim lineage gurus and so forth.
출루기 타년도 지기 배지 배들 지 라니 라면에 소리 지저셔마도 나서 쓰리지는 로봇 명예질로 랑수 밑으로 세고 세자로 다 로봇 정해 지거나 아니 로봇 정해 다 다다 가서 체득이 되지 개체면 세워지 이지 10회 때는 때는 정도의 로봇 정해 달라 아니 다다 전에 10회 저희 때 달라 좀 해봐.
So here now, when speaking about taking refuge in three jewels, in the Buddhist perspective, it is not something that's mere religious tradition. It is something that is a way of practice what it need to be followed. But rather, we know that ourselves, that we are not capable of ourselves to protect ourselves by one's own power at this moment. And just as whatever we do, in our day-to-day life, all our activities are, relied upon others. So there's nothing that we can do independently. Similarly, when it comes to generating a real happiness within one's mind, it really requires, object of refuge to whom we pay homage and we, take refuge so that we will be protected by means of cultivating appropriate motivations and a right way of thinking. So here, particularly when it comes to taking refuge in the perspective of Buddhism, Buddhist perspective, it is we're talking about developing quality of one's minds. So therefore, the developing quality of one's mind must be relied upon the object of three jewels, without which it is not possible for us to, develop a quality of our mind.
니멍아데 빠체데 타냐 잡도
타면도 이제 다가라를 시작도.
저저 타냐 보자디 바 돈데 통데서는 신나 잡으려도 가게 깨져.
민도.
야야.
민도.
되지. 다 된저기 저기에서 다 아니. 저기서 따바나기 한다라 냥바세네리 가서 집지장 소수지고 거바데 가서 주식이 타냐레마도 네 대화 동행 냥바레 손데 다티지 차체베지 추쇼나 타냐르도 칸은 자자가저디 연수하면데 차시기르마도 집에 소소라 같이 간제지 거나 쟁을 거바 집지장 인자데 아니 랑라 데지 주고나 랑데 냥바게 신체 창질을 주고고도 근데 나도 랑지 강가 집지장에도 이나요 다 데지 주사데 당란데 드레지 담비 추르네 당란 세는데 개개면도 인자는 저희 대다게 좋네 아니 데지도에 당란지 내바다가 속 각각이 데지도에 당란지 세게 인다 하세요 내가 좀 이바데스 책이다.
So as usual, we visualize object of refuge and then being oneself in their presence, and oneself is also surrounded by all other sentient beings. It's just as we long to achieve happiness and overcome sufferings, and all other sentient beings has a similar wish to achieve happiness and overcome suffering. So here, the fact is that, if we would like to achieve the state of pure happiness, it is always, essential for us to wishing happiness upon all other sentient beings without discriminations will become a cause for achieving happiness, the pure happiness for oneself. So therefore, thinking about all other sentient beings as myself who would like to achieve happiness and overcome suffering. So now, in order to achieve such happiness, we're not talking about ordinary happiness. We're talking about happiness that is a pure and everlasting happiness. And this can only be this can only be done on the basis of practicing Dharma, and by means of practicing Dharma, one will then be able to achieve happiness. And this is uh, this kind of conviction must be cultivated within one's stream of being, irreversibly. With these motivations, one then take refuge in the presence of object of refuge. So let's take a couple of minutes to meditate on visualization of object of refuge. So with this motivations, the teaching that we are receiving is the teachings which is known as encapsulation of the great 1,000 deities of deities of the Dharma, and it is also known as the sublime and sublime oceans, sublime oceans. So therefore, this teaching that we are receiving, the great deities on the stages of the path, the enlightenment, it actually serves as a synopsis of essential teachings of thousands of Buddha's teaching, in other words, the thousands of Buddha's teaching. So therefore, one should feel that what one is so fortunate to be able to receive such a wonderful teachings. So this is what we call the collection of the stream of all the teachings, and becomes the great oceans, referring to the great deities on the stages of the path to enlightenment. Similarly, by means of receiving such teachings, can has the equivalent to receiving the teachings of the thousand teachings of the Dharma. And then also someone who is actually expounding this great deities in the stages of the path to enlightenment to the followers, and it also has a great benefits of expounding or the teaching the thousand teachings of the Dharma.
아니 대전라고 다 나리 첨부 체내 집이거라 잠블린 데도 옆에 아니 추보도 연수 좀 기초 당거래 써야 돼.
So therefore, I often remind of this one statement by saying that whenever we are receiving the teachings from Lam Rim Chenmo or giving the teachings of Lam Rim Chenmo, it actually shivers the entire text, the Dharma text that is existing now in the world.
다 되게 jonde tempo 보내 토마시나 아니 되베도 tempo to 배운보 아니 봐도 아니 자 니 신다 좀 루루도 토메니라 소베기 네 자가지 네 벤주지 아니 대네 네 베지 네 벤주당 자가지 벤주 아니 로자오 냥도 전에 베게 돌았죠 아니 베제네 다 기본 담보 속에 개주니 된 속에 냐선냄비 냐녀게 도는 송비네 다 무슨네 정말로 소방부 침비 아니 냐녀네 추비 아니 샤조랑 저래 봐 간셈바시 초선들이 제법이 쳐와서
That this is the teaching that we are receiving, or the great, or also the greatness of the authors given in order to show the teachings as a noble source. Here now, the precious teachings is given by the Buddha Shakyamuni and transmitted to his followers and preserved and practiced by the great tribal elders, mainly the great two tribal elders known as Arya Nagarjuna and Arya Sangha, which is then be transmitted to other great Indian masters, pandits, and then in collaboration work with the Indian masters and the great Tibetan masters, they then translated such teachings into Tibetan language, in Tibetan. And then all those teachings that are translated in Tibetan was then undertaken by the rigorous studies by Lama Tsongkhapa and gain immaculate realizations, the spiritual realizations. And the teaching that we're receiving here, the great teachers on the stages of the path to enlightenment, is the experiential knowledge of Lama Tsongkhapa. By means of his own practice, he gained all those experiences, and whatever the experience that he may have gained, then he is written down into the form of text for the benefit of his followers. So then here we have three kinds of Lam Rim Chenmo, Lam Rim, sorry. So one is the great Lam Rim, the great teachers in the stages of path enlightenment, which is Lam Rim Chenmo, and the second one is the middling Lam Rim, and the third one is a small Lam Rim. The abbreviated Lam Rim is in fact known as the the, the experiential spiritual song or doha of the Lama Tsongkhapa.
다 취지 저는 게 단지 시마 타바나 이 미세라고 하면 단지 시마 타바나 제 아니 다 되게 네 저원이도 되게 출연이 시제다 세세네 맞죠 결혼 단지 결혼 줘봐나 예제네 사제 동보선데 주바지.
So then here it comes to how to listen to the teachings in which both teachings and its author are great, which will be done by cultivating a right motivations.
다 당방은 절로만 제다트이 바사이 사지시 바지 야라 란저서 신내 때비츠나 때는 로치다자이 바니 아니 나마도시.
So then this will then be followed by the next other divisions or the outlines, which is the sequence in which the disciples are to be taught the actual instructions, and then how to rely on the teachers, which is the root of spiritual path, and how to students train their mind after having relied on the spiritual teacher.
sonju dandala tension shu yenge da saje yeba de yega lo ne sen yo de da saje kono la da ne saje de lo ne zhou yong gu suan ji do ro da kan de juya na se ji saje kono chen da go de de ji song de kan de juya na se ji na sa yin le go suan de ji do.
So here we have a saying that if someone who is wholeheartedly want to become a Lam Rim practitioners, then for such individual, just by hearing those four outlines, the outlines that we have gone through earlier, they will generate such a strong desire. It's a insatiable desire for knowing, for the knowledge of this Lam Rim Chenmo. So therefore, you will have such an encouragement of that you really want to visit that wonderful place.
ande 저런 거 저기 통모만이 비 치치를 송도 사제되는 미세기 사제기 제대로 돈 지어라 센터.
This is such a unique feature of Lama Tsongkhapa. Whenever he writes a text, and he will begin with writing the text, giving a very specific outlines, which actually encapsulates the entire chapter of the text.
다 때는 제다자에 발라니 대대는 님보는 비시 그거다 님보 제다는 비치 니제 다 도모지 다 님보 제다는 비치들라니 란지 나자라 님보 제다는 님보는 뭐지 다 도모지 다 님보는 증거들라 송 주부 중요도 통한 란지를 냥서는지 주문 전도 통한 란지를 냥서는지 주부 챔피언 란지를 냥서는지 다 도모니 제사 다 주부 챔피언 란지를 냥서는지 송 대전은 주부 고 생제 코나된 바 생제 제다 집이 생제는 쇼발로 지지 다 도모니 제사 다 생제는 쇼발로 로치라 송 생제는 로발로 로비 전전 로발에 레발로 로비 상제문 주바 된바 로발로 로비 림바 니시바지 다 도모니 제사 다 로발로 로비 림바 니시바달라 니 되니 지 나 대바침 버질라 로지다 치바도 도제 대발로 로지지 니지 안다 동보라 송 아니 상생제 로발로 한데 상와 장내 저세제 동바송 손에 제단이 비추지 다 도모니지 다 손에 제단이 비추되라 송 간로로 비시 델로바는 디지 델로로 비레바지 다 도모니지 다 델로로 비레바라 니 쇼바질라로데 치바도 파제 타마니나 지지 다 동보라 니 랑게 상지 주미 바시바 파라데신 바라데다 진지 주미 바시바 디용고 바실라 지지 다 동보라 주 이진바라 추춘라 주 조발라 주 전주라 주 상den라 주 시라라 지지 다 디노게 나서 네 랑지 미바시바 랑지 미바세나 처음부터 제세제 남바존에 유동의 쇼발라 주 파라데신 바라 주 나나 파라데신 바 주여변하게네 제바 전주 파르신 발로지 나 전주지 파르신 발로지 때 네 용몽보 예배 나네 제세 시와라 이종네 네 미세 제바였다네 대지만 대지진도 송wen세네 맞아요 네 제세 시와라 이종네 송비 전주 파르신 발로지 되고 와대되지.
So, having taken a bodhisattva's vow, one is then engaging in the bodhisattva's practice. So when speaking about bodhisattva's practice, there are of 6 perfections, the practice of 6 perfections. Out of the 6 perfections, we have covered the above 3 perfections. Well, on the particular practice of perfections, what is known as the perfection of joyous perseverance. And the joyous perseverance, the explanation of joyous perseverance, the practice of explanation of joyous perseverance is given in this particular text in accordance with the Shantideva's guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life.
되지. 다 저세 쇼라 이종네 니 게체 아니 다 렐로 넘버 손테까 아니 이바 텐제 초 봉된 거래 세다가 텐제 초기 봉된서 될라 되지.
So here now, in order to practice, the Shantideva has mentioned the importance of eliminating the 3 kinds of laziness. Having eliminated the 3 kinds of laziness, and then how to gather the force of favorable conditions for practicing perfection of joyous perseverance. We are on the gathering the force of favorable conditions at this point.
되지. 다 가서 가서 땜비 따로 생긴데 게 취재 장사 받은 로에 상승이 피치 사제대 이남이 대다 양세 되버 차도 조세
대버린 그럼지 그걸 미기로 시제 대다야 된마 되네
그거만 시에서세 대받은 로세
상상 라오
어디 대냐 다 대니다
감자 관심에도 서든 마이
되지 이 가서 애들 대시 쉬우지만 가서 땜비 따로 생긴데 샤와 간데치 장외에서나 동보 따제제 소속이 투나 아니 샤와들레주 마투나 아니 민주 아니 민주가 유샤마자데 아니 투바지에 차젠의 트레이닝 차젠의 상소나 님바데 주고래 소야지 너와 약간 가르치면 땜버 체크를 해야 돼.
So here it says we're going back to the previous paragraphs, the last paragraphs, reading through this, last 4 lines. In some, committing yourself to do something but leaving in unfinished is hindrance to your accomplishment of other projects, and conditioning also destabilizing your commitment to vows, your commitment to the vows you have taken. So therefore it says, whenever we do something, right from the beginning, that we have to analyze very carefully whether you'll be able to carry out the project that you are actually planning. If you really think that project that you are planning, that's something that for some reason that you may not be able to you may not be able to fulfill, then right from the beginning, you should leave it. If you think that you can do it, then without any procrastinations, you should go ahead and do it. So then, in order to have such a stabilized state of mind to do whatever one once has a project of doing, then for that, what kind of favorable condition that is required for us? So here, the next paragraph, it explains about it. So then here it says, we're on the page 197, beginning from the therefore, if you want to complete what you have committed yourself to do, cultivate 3 types of pride. Engaging in the bodhisattva states, you should have pride in three areas: action, ability, and afflictions.
되지. 나 도서 가서 하고 지다 뒤지 가지 가서 녀목이 돼서는 가지 저 차도 세대 반자로 와. 단대 뒤지 가지 미다네. 네 가지 세대 생기 뽑아. 가서 가디에는 생기 뽑아 되냐 소나. 네 게 조금 먼저 세대 레로에는 가린 될해 되더라. 대문역이 된다라니 당 가지에 미다네. 네 손보디 거래해서.
So although that it says there's three types of pride. So here the three types of pride, that doesn't mean the pride associated with delusion or the type associated with afflictions. This is not the kind of pride that we are talking about here. Here it is to some kind of encouragement. In other words, it's encouragements, because if you lose encouragements, and there's no way that we can continue our practice. So therefore, development of encouragement.
되지. 될라 레증하지네서 동 레증하지 녀모 병하지 니병하지 선에. 네 레다 녀모 네바테송도. 대노 요 동보 레증하지네 손도. 젠슬라야 장게 랑두비 조치 떼바 메차와 랑 코네 주바테 다니 주부샤오시 말 알레 다니 주부샤오시 데는 랑징하지니 제단 시진레 장손도.
So then here it says pride about actions. We talked about three kinds of pride, right? The pride, actions, ability, and afflictions. So now first we're talking about the pride about actions. The pride about action means that no matter who else may be your companion as you practice the path, and you do not count on them, but accomplish it yourself alone. So engaging in the bodhisattva states, I alone shall do it. This is the pride about action.
변화가 저기 고아 카툰에서 내려와 니제도 하상이 쳐본다고 저러 하상생에디 랑 코네 저기 랑 코드네 레이나 하상을 거기 파쇼되기 두고 말이 게 저기 세대게요 말이다 얘나요 코드네 어때 자체자라니 코드네 비 샤와두고라 가서 감각이 내가 나랑 찍고기 저기에서 코드네 파쇼를 제때 맞찬 제비 손 지러 내가 제때 맞춰 손도 얘네 던지기 니지기 생다리다 간지 니지다.
So this actions that we talked about earlier, that actions, this particular actions is actually derived by a cultivation of compassion. So therefore, it talks about cultivating a resolute intention, very pure intention that you would take all the responsibilities, without depending on anyone. So I will take my responsibility to engage in these actions. It is almost like the resolute intentions that we find in the 7 cause and effect, the bodhicitta practice. We have a resolute intention after the cultivation of compassion. So this is the kind of intention that we're talking about here, this action.
타바랑라 타바달라라린데라네 젠지 조지 제마치 제시에손바 따로손 아티베티지 로샤제.
So therefore here it says also Nagarjuna's friendly letter Surlika says a liberation depends on oneself. It never occurs through the help of others.
시에손바 따론 데네 셴라 메레와 다 지부 두보 냠발라 나제 단자와 예베 델라 나제 따바세레 델라 따바오 나제스나 따바레 예손.
So then here it says, the thought I alone shall achieve this without having any expectation of others is similar to pride. So it is given the name pride, pride about action.
되지. 로아 Tendriki sento ji tanga so yi son nge gang la de yin da da rang de yin na pa ju pe na ta ni bi nga je ye ha de se ro do na ma do shi to ni bi nga je ye gang ma de se ro do ni bi nga je ne so de ro na ne ni mo ji on de je ba rang ge ten ya du mi ne na je je ten ta ji me da ge ne rang ji je ten du ba ne so nya ne du ba de ni du ba de Nyomo omen jiten des randun drupa mini pe joye data mini te dewe dake desha wo sheso sondo.
So here now the pride about ability. The pride about ability means that you accomplish your own and others' welfare, thinking since living beings are under the power of afflictions, they are unable to achieve even their own welfare, much less the welfare of others. I am able to accomplish the welfare of both myself and others. So engaging in the Bodhisattva's deed says, the beings of this world, subject to the afflictions, cannot achieve their own welfare. They are not as able as I am, so I shall do it I shall do it for them.
Ante, doa, te sana nga tsu sana tonen du sire, sana tonen sinchen rang yang, sinchen yang ngang si le tani, ni ji chenpo dar, la san rang ji le le bi ka la, sinchen rang ni ki ta ke chenpo tu nge ji, tsona de jache jale gu roa, rang ni, tanda nga su ki na tande, sho chi ne nga tsu so ji yin chen gu ma to, ten tri ki lang to ji ne la, shen ju je ne ngang si sana tonen ji na, ta rang ji yin ji ten da pa yu che de rang ni, nga ne che na,
If you really look at very carefully and understand carefully about the actual nature of sentient beings and the situation of the sentient beings, it is really true, regardless of who they are, let alone they, they actually uh, fulfill the wealth of other beings. They can't even fulfill the wealth of their own self. How can they fulfill the wealth of others? Right? For us now, we're not really being ourselves as a equal, really someone who is superior than anyone else. But then the fact is that, well, at this point, we as the practitioner, the followers of the Dhamma, we are trying our best to the fullest ability of ourselves to really to cultivate positive motivations and engaging in the practice which abandons the negative acts and trying to adopt positive actions. And so therefore, if we were to compare ourselves with those beings who are completely ignorant of the Dharma, so then it is really true that we have some capability of working for the wealth of other beings.
Tricky Sanjay Yang sit the Chimachine, Niji Rome Pache, Sinching Dandala Rani, Loton to get the Chayim Bicola, and the Lota the Lake.
So this power of ability will arise in us when you cultivate a genuine compassion for all other sentient beings. When you cultivate a genuine aspiration, compassion for other sentient beings, then such ability will arise automatically in our stream of being.
Amachil Pichi Madame Butter, but Sewa Yajin Betty Korama Menge Chabicola, Pugit and Nepa Chabicola, Amigulu, so long should the chapel 2 million and Luton to see you on the Summa de Amakron, Nipa, you get a schemaroa, Ama Nipa Kemewa.
So it is the power of sense of caring for others. It has a great power. Here, let's take an example of mother whose only child or whose only child is suffering from sickness, and mother will do everything can to cure her only child from that particular sickness, even to even the cost of her own life. It is not that mother has all supernatural power. It is part of her caring for the pure power that she has for her own, the loving kindness for her own son or child. So therefore, if we were to really cultivate a genuine compassion for other sentient beings, and such extraordinary ability will take place in our continuum.
Tantri sento de lo shu chimbo le bekola mansi tantri senje le rewa de no ke le samara tombo de la ro jen la rewa me cha ngaro chibo ki che kin senge lo chi le yon sa ro ko ngzo zo ngaso me de robo chobo ji yo ba le me na ga senge de ji ro so so ra gi ni ki le ka che cha na ga senge de robo de le si ro.
So here now it's a very telling when you look at here, you know, the beings of this world subject to their frictions cannot achieve their own welfare. So they are not able to, not as able as I am. So I shall do it for them. So here now, I alone, you know, when you are able to, when you're are really, you know, completely, your mind is completely influenced by this compassion. So the power of compassion will give you such ability that I will not really rely on anyone now. You know, I'm going to do it for myself. You know, in other words, to working for the welfare of other ascension. I alone will do it. So this kind of encouragement, this kind of ability, the mental ability, will be arisen in us.
Yeah, de da jam mi pi le le zum mi pi le le zuo mi je na da ka sa mi je na da je bu cha ne bu du bi le le chi shi re mi je na de sa ne du ba de yen da mi pi le she na da ni jang ne de je tan du je so so du.
So then here it says, furthermore, practice while thinking. If this being strives at lowly activities without interruptions, and why should I not perform the actions that will achieve the perfect effects? Engaging in the Bodhisattva's deed says, if others perform lowly actions, how can I be ideal?
Sho chin nan dawo da jaro wa dan jing ye lo ye sin jie yang ang ci de dan yu de sin jie de ne je bu me ba ji ge dan da la ni ka le jiao tu le zhe wa jin ne zhe wa de me tu ne jie tu nge ji kan zhe ka le jiao tu ge na nga so yi da long do ge ne xie ne je bu cha ne ba jing ba xie yi la ka le ka le jin ne jiao tu ge ma re de re do.
So here now, it's really true, you know, if other sentient beings who are working tirelessly for a very ordinary result, why can't we put an effort that as we know what is positive that is to be achieved, adopted, and what is negative that is to be abandoned? Having such a knowledge, we have such a knowledge. Why can't we work tirelessly for the extraordinary result?
接说园长点你主办呢，人气的些呢，让了龙别主办民间，这一能把见的单点呢，俺这当们这话下的，俺这今年的没些干啥，俺这今年没些的，到了俺这边个就接说，人就没你把大给你两百样，俺这当去听别。So
then here it says, however, when you achieve these two prides about actions and ability, you should not do so with self-conceit, out of contempt for others. Rather, regards others with with compassion, and so do not mix in any pride, engaging in the Bodhisattva's deed states. Deed states that I do not do it out of pride. I should have no pride, thinking others are not capable. I am able. Again, resembles pride, so it is labeled pride.
人气世界我说有对就他你对我这生意的嘛嘞是，那的这样往给嘞是，那我这的去听吧，现在我这生的大把嘞送多。
So it resembles pride, but it's not pride at all. The pride that we normally talk about, pride that is to be abandoned, pride that is associated with afflictions. So this is not the kind of pride that we're talking about here.
당가수 간자하고 그러잖아. 뒤진기가 저 뒤진 녀모기 가제 되어서나 아니 파쇼 때를 장人的 타人的 다다 두죠. 단다되게 타 예제다 이동이 다다 수치를 그래.
So here, normally in our pride, which associate with afflictions, and when you have such prides, you will keep more distance with other beings. But when you have the pride that we're talking about here, the pride of ability, when you have such pride, this pride will make you closer to sentient beings, and having it enables you to achieve, cultivate a sense of caring and sense of connectedness with other sentient beings.
배나 저한테 처음에 양천修양천修가려서 뒤중가 속에 이동원에 또 년발에 쇼바 년발에서 탄탄데 피게들 파탄에 피게 통하셔로 저와다 인지 수치버 가세요디 유지기 내당 코로나 메셔와데 가세기 용어이 넘바디 차용도 그때는 로또 못하게 생샤고도 인지.
So here normally when we as ordinary beings, when we come across with someone who is, who has a very bad behavior, and someone who is not really, well-behaved individuals, who has some kind of outlandish attitudes. So then, for such individuals, either we generate negative thoughts or we ignore. But when you are completely, influenced by this great compassion, then instead of abandoning such individuals, you will see this individual so dearly. It is all like, mind captivating individuals. You are able to see that. So therefore, compassion has a really, really powerful, quality that really enables one to change oneself from one person to another being.
다만 상제기 대세 때도 유초바 진이 제투고 말했다. 니지기 저와카나 제투고 말해. 정으로 제기 소도 니지 단치 니한테 따투고도 세데 니지 단치 이동아 따투고도 세데 로테랑 저기 자찬되지 제투사 말어 뭐냐잖아. 니지 단치 이동아 로테라 상마메바 차용이지 뭐지 차나다. 얘네 다 가르쳐거든. 넘버 단치도 전통해서 여 말어.
So here now, it is really true, that is, we cannot fathom the qualities of the Buddha when speaking about the Buddha's quality, let alone that we can fathom or we measure the Buddha's quality. But even when we speak about the compassion, the quality of compassion itself is something that is, unspeakable. It cannot be described in a word when speaking about the compassion, quality of compassion. Therefore, His Holiness always says, once your mind is completely, influenced by the compassion genuinely, then everything that appears to you as a dear to you, there's nothing that exists, something that needs to be, that needs to be considered as enemy, and someone that needs to be considered as one's loved one, and so forth. But rather, everything that appears to you, both environment and then beings who are living within that environment, appear to you as the ones, appear dear to oneself. So here, look at this. If one is able to cultivate such motivations, that kind of mental quality, how blissful we will become.
다 손바 녀모병 아제네 손도 녀모병 아제네 녀모바 넘바 탄치의 쳇세네 다 대다레 제와 샤이 대다 달레 나야 제와 메샤오냐도 메티비션 정발라 로예 빠지 제네 템바샤와 때 대다 균레 제자 대다 균레 제샤 때 달레 서야 제메샤 제와 생기 세다베 ngaji de la neba sha sheso sondo.
So then here the next is said pride about afflictions. The pride about affliction means that with contempt for the afflictions on all occasions, you think I shall be victorious over this, and they shall never defeat me. It means being steadfast after you have generated the courageous thought to destroy the incomparable factors. So engaging in the bodhisattva stage, I shall conquer all. Nothing shall defeat me. I, a child of victorious line, shall continue to have this pride.
Te ko de bodo nyamo le jewa se de nyamo la khate jana ma do nyamo gi rani phamba rani gi pha nyamo phamba ma do nyamo gi rani di phamba na ye che ge min se ani ngaje in po ba go do.
So this is this encouragement is very important for us. And I will not let myself be defeated by the delusions or the afflictions. Rather, I will always have a genuine motivation to gain a victory over those afflictions. And this is the kind of pride that we should always have.
Jawa se da jeba ngaje de le jeba de neba re son do nyamo le jeba neba son do tama shen ju chi tama ni.
So then here it says all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, by means of this, the pride of afflictions, they gain victory over all those afflictions.
Meditation jong bi lo yi pa che sa nga shang chu sam pa pa se de nga po yi pa de se ro ta pa ba se de po yi pa se de karel pa wa sa na nyomo bi dale ta bi pa se ne nyomo bi dale je bi pa se na tani che ro.
So here it says the pride about affliction means that with contempt for the afflictions on all occasions, you think that I shall be victory over this. So Changshu Sempa in Tibetan, which is the Bodhisattvas, that means a pa. There's a pa, there's a one syllable pa. It also connotes, it has a connotation of victorious. The victorious over what? It's a victorious over afflictions.
Teta ma je be so shina mintin shu chungwe jang ne ba ne shi re kasa shi dang de chen de na kata kadin da be shi kete dani nyang chu na tongwa chung ne ba shi xiong je zhe do la pong ye tao ye dang ji de jie so so de.
In other words, if you lose courage, even a small incapable factor will harm you. Engaging in the bodhisattva state says, even a crow acts like a Garuda when it finds a dying snake. If I am feeble, even a single shortcoming will harm me. How can one who gives up and discouraged find freedom from destitution?
Pena nga so se so na ni pa nyang ba ni pa chi de chi nyang chung cha ba ro je ro nyang chung de cha pi ka la so de chen ne ba chi de bo yo ro chi dan ma ji de ta ni la.
So when we become very weak, then we easily become a target of all those the people who have egoistic people, in other words egoistic beings. So therefore we should always remain, we should not become a weak in terms of having a battle with afflictions.
Chidai na nga chu de 샤 그때 가서 카딘 생인데 나르다 생인데 주의 카데 저거로 주의 카데 저거래 얘나야 지 주의 시샤야나야 샤카다도 가른다나 이게 지보전에 지 제는마도 거는 지 냥촌들 전에 제가 말했어 로 카다기 주시도야나야 지 가른다나 이게 렌데 전에 다 지본을 지 저로지 인데 땡고 면도 근데 지 제는마도 총 말씀도 아니 근데 제거를 마도 빠시는 소리나 내가 춘주지야 소소내네 아니 좋아체 두고 말해 아니 풍알에 나야 타고 말해서 나자로
So here it is a really good advice. You should not be a feeble, because if one really become a weak and remain discouraged or disheartened, then even a slight shortcoming, in other words, a very minor infractions will defeat you. So therefore, one should not remain weak when it comes to having a battle with infractions. So therefore, there's a example, a very beautiful example is set for here. It's even a crow. Crow acts like a Garuda when it finds a dying snake. The Garuda is, supposed to be an antidote of serpents. That is, serpents are normally in a manifestation and manifested in a very ferocious and snakes. So this can be defeated by the Garuda. But then the crows do not have such ability. But then when the crows see a dying snake, would become a weak snakes, and they act like a Garuda. Let's take it 10 minutes here.
당연히 양의 시에는 친구도 대미메지 다음에 당한 조사고 생애 샤카다다 샤포로기 되게 적선스다 이슈 계시 다 가동빌랑 계시 샤라이 시에네 추보에 대화를 하지 대화를 하봐야 내라 추인데 보나 심마 펜체도 동해 마타메 바냐스 랑고 바양 상 rangi zuwa ma xe na nyemo pe jang hiji me ta nyebo yang chu ji gang mini pe de nye rang zoba xe se na miyon sanje da shang chu senpa ta ki jang jewa mini song so song de gadang bil geji sharawa
So, Kadamba Master Cheryl has said, the happiness of those who cast aside the teachings does not exceed their happiness before doing so. Consider the fact that if you give up the teachings in this lifetime, you must hereafter undergo endless sufferings. If you make no effort, the affliction will not look upon you with compassion. Also, the remedy will not say, you are unable to cultivate me, so I will complete the task for you. Even the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas will not be able to protect you.
따따라 카투미 차로 미시마도 문에잖아 단도 추유도 유샤와이나 아니 저런 추 저기면 가르쳐서나 막갈래 카우도 세하지로와 다이네 추 갈래 카를 셴비게 아니 소소레 대화지 여러 전에 되고래 대화되는 매와.
So here now the fact it is really true. So if you really, abandon the Dharma at this time, then, even though if you long to achieve a pure happiness or lasting happiness, it is not possible, right? So here, let's think about it. I am unable to practice at this time. Why? Because I'm really tired. This will be possibility answer that we may give. I'm really tired. But if you are so tired and if you just giving up your practice of Dharma, will it make you happy or will it give you any happiness as a result of abandoning Dharma?
단다 되지. 다 된적이 추 맞춰와이나 단다 된적이 내가 추 유셔야 되게 내가 하바 매바 마세 추 유셔야 되게 니 저와 신화 편절라 아니 추 맞춰와이나 다 야나 노마데레 야나 메겨올이 진주로레 메제네 베데 인산에 동에 메타 매바지 용거바테 코 랑기 레칼레테네 하고 그러.
So then here it says, without engaging in practice of Dharma in this lifetime, then if one do not engage in any practice of Dharma, then one's action will become either, it is neuter or maybe become actions, the negative actions. Once you have committed negative actions, once you have engaged in the negative actions, the result is inevitable. You will, and the individual who engaged in the actions will experience the result. So therefore, by abandoning the practice of Dharma will not really give you any happiness.
다들 소소라 칼로네 소소라 좋았던 소소 돈을 저거 주네 다 가던 뭐 뭐자 로장인자데 소소 돈을 저거 주는 송으로 아니 된적이 대화진 예 말에 소소 당에 주 맞제반에 단달에 맞제바기 대화진다 가오가 맞제나 제만에 갈래 대화 용사를 용사 말에서는 이 산나 땅 송도아.
So this is how the Kadambas normally, not really pointing at someone else, but pointing at themselves by saying that, pointing at themselves by saying that, if I abandon practicing Dharma, will I be happy? Will I be happy in this lifetime, or will I be happy in my future life as well?
아니모라 파카티자는 예보지 마대는 예모기는 소소를 진행지 다이지의 유쇼. 로 마티야마도 매와.
So therefore, if one is unable to find a faults of afflictions, then the afflictions will never have compassion for us. Period. In fact, if you let ourselves influenced by the afflictions, it will drag you to the lowest. So therefore, it will never have any sense of caring and sense of compassion for us.
단예보 government 베랑 티하라 조시반 세나 메용에 손도아. 로 딱 간제 소소기래가 강강 제메게 비토네네 예전 요소 조바지 제세나다. 유한 코로 여마로 유한 메비 강라 산제 상주 삼반나지 저토 여마로 손도아.
So here now, whenever we have time, it is always, practice and cultivate antidotes towards those negative thoughts and emotions or the afflictions. Because without cultivating remedy or antidotes towards afflictions, the antidote will not automatically come into us. We ourselves put in efforts to cultivate antidotes. So without application of antidotes, even the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas will not be able to protect us.
땡고에 내지랑로 나속에 저 땡보 보세데 멤버를 지야와리 저 뭐데 추얼을 전에 매래자네 아니 게디 저도빈 다도선에 손인데 간제 멤버게 매때네 매데 네바라니 예산에 네들 다네마 다시 개개요 말어 대나기 산적이 추송버데 라니게 냐네 제네 아니 니보테네 아니 메티쇼 빠는마도 다시 개개면으로.
So here now, it is true when you think about, taking refuge in individuals, the three jewels, the first Buddha is analogous to a physician, a skilled physician. And then teachings that given by the Buddha, Dharma, is to the actual, medicine that is to be taken by us. And then the Sangha community, who are a companion of our practices, our spiritual practice, and so on. So therefore, whatever the Buddha has said, whatever the teachings that Buddha has given, if we do not practice, if we do not take it, if we do not implement those practices, then how can we really overcome our negative thoughts and emotions? Just like physicians who will prescribe the medicine, but you got the medicine, but if you are not taking this medicine, how can you be able to alleviate yourself from the sicknesses?
Sanjay, ani garsa dipachi ki chugo mare donghe sha ki sega mare ani chuni demba tene ani chana chua jogore soete daga rangi ta nambi ki tatu ki shachene dema to dos ke mero.
So here Buddha has stated very clearly, he actually put it in a very beautiful way by saying that the negativity of sentient beings cannot be cleansed by water, nor can the suffering of beings by cleansed by using my hand and so forth. But rather, all the negativities and the afflictions and the sufferings can be overcome by means of teaching the suchness or the thusness.
Just show like Dani Dagi going Dani Dagi dying city, never to some del tura. Rangi sending you to the dinner Sanjay Temba, so it's Ganga.
So it is really a point, an essential point is made by Shanti Deva as well. It said, we ourselves is our own foe, and we ourselves is our own, protector. And then also we find in the sutra, the Buddha actually essentialized beautifully all the teachings, or entire teachings of the Buddha, is by saying that, do not commit even a minor, negative deeds, and engage in the actions of the virtuous, and subdue one's mind, which is the teachings of the Dharma.
Mama tabi ngaje shena metishu chembe jang badu ju mini pe dena ngaje de je go pa ne ngaje re ale de sanju tsire do dena ngaje de je go ba ne ngaje zowa je be ne chembo yi jang tuba ka dewe sene tembo yi tongwa ya ne shon sha de sheso so.
So now it says, if you apply the aforementioned three prides, even great incomparable factors cannot block you. So you must generate these three kinds of pride, engaging in the bodies of the deed states. Against one who strives with pride, even great obstacles will be in trouble. So with the steadfast mind, I will overcome my shortcomings.
다 주단 ngaje che riga mare ma dong hama tabi ki ngaje che go re so do ngama ta nga chu gon shebi le chi ngaje da ni bi ngaje da nyomo bi ngaje che go re so do
this
de
three
che na
kinds,
ba de che ba chenbo yin na ma ne nyomo ba chenbo yin na ba de che tu ma re so do.
so these three kinds of prides must be cultivated by us. We're not talking about the ordinary pride, which is associated with afflictions, but the particular pride, the three kind of pride that we talked about earlier, must be cultivated. So if one is able to cultivate these three prides, even a great incomparable factors, a great afflictions cannot block you. That's what it says.
This number she go pe mesi ke chemo nge tanji lo na yi dijung ga tame pe ngaje seng de na mi ki chenso no no kono su de kaden su de dai wo de dijung ngaje seng khyin me ji na ro pe na ngaje ju kombo yin ten chu mo ja son zo re ngaje seng de pa ra go na ye pe na ji chu de ji no lo mo ta mo de so na nong kambu cha kalyamba cha maro ngaje sikbe
So
tanda
this is,
yinji sengete ni ba nge loiba hinka no chutong ba na yines rani ye rani mechi de nga so jinso no mechi re da samba de kinle chode.
so this is a completely different kind of pride that we're talking about. You know, unlike the pride which is the delusional pride. So this the pride is associated with the afflictions, and someone who has such a strong pride will be distinguished by even your own friends, or will be distinguished by even if you associate with the with other societies, you will be distinguished very easily by by the people whom you really know closely will be distinguish you by and seeing you as someone who is so egoistic. But people will know about that, and people will have a negative way of looking at you. So, but this pride, the pride that we're talking about here, is the three kinds of pride. Is something that you actually uh, releasing irrigation or the water to the field where all the sprouts can grow and and the fruits can germinate out of by releasing this water into the field.
Tanda digi ngaje de yon jachir do ro jachir do do ta kanga kinle chabo ngara rangi jega yinse di zao yi la ka kanga khudele ne le ga je jachir do ro tanda thame ba ye ngaje se le so na tong do ro busu do do ro paru chile jene kujo chile chignya ba ji de so ne ji ma do njoasa ka ma jeng cha do.
So here now, this pride, these three kinds of pride that we talked about, and if one is able to cultivate such prides, because these prides are actually, derived from the sense of caring, the genuine sense of caring for others, which broaden your mind. It will broaden your mind and will enable you to extend your sense of caring and sense of connectedness with all other beings. So you become very close mentally, or if not physically but mentally, become very close to all other beings, and then your mind will be broadened significantly. Whereas this pride, the pride associated with afflictions, it will narrow your mind. It will shrink your mind, and will then finally, as a result of having such a negative pride, we will then be isolated yourself, and everyone, even people whom you know for a long time, will look at you as a stranger.
Just nga zoi lo yin den seng ji love me she de ma do se me ba de ji re do da yin den seng de ge che de ro yi dong wa zhong zhong xie ge ro zhong zhong de wa den zhe ji nga zo ge pa da da che ba je na da nga zo le yi wei ya da sang ji re da da dan da de se gang gang nga ro zo le ji zai yin ge yu lo yi gong zhi den me de ji ro a yin zan nga zo le ji shuo ji nga zo sa jie xiang ju sen bei yin de ji zhong zhong lin de ma do ngo zu san ne so so rang de ji be ji jiang cha wei ro 인자네 메탄도 전에 제야서라 소소모 비다고 지다 매 상바도 매 려려다 매 이동화 줘야지 뭐네 여서라.
So here now, when speaking about the quality of our mind, the development of quality of our mind, it cannot describe in words, but such an incredible quality can be cultivated, can be achieved by us, even though it is such an unspeakable, quality, but it can be achieved by us because we do have the basis upon which we can develop those qualities. Normally, we talked about the Buddha's quality of compassion, wisdom, sense of caring for other sentient beings and so forth. But if we put in effort, sincere effort, with diligently, then such development of the mental development will take place in us because we do have basis. We do have, seeds to grow those quality.
xie so ji de da ma yin ba zhu bo bo dong ye pang ba xie na kang song ji nyamo le je wan de ba ne ke be chi bi ne yin de da ne dong ye pang xie na kang song jun de xie ge ji ru xie so song do ja che ja ro
No. So here now it says, oh yes. Otherwise, if the practitioners are defeated by these shortcomings, their desire to conquer the afflictions of the three realms will be an embarrassment among the learned. And the engaging in the Bodhisattva deed says, if I am defeated by the shortcomings, my desire to conquer the three realms is a joke.
xie so ji de ne nyamo le chi se xie ne jong ban de be nyamo bi nga ji xie da so ji nyamo ma ji la ge ji se
So then here it says, it is called pride about afflictions because you have contempt for the afflictions and then want to destroy them.
nang xie zi ba ne ji de da min zhao wa qi me yong ha man ji gang nyang mo so do de da na ye xian la re wa ka ne rang ji bi xie ba go re go go xie go go ji go go de yang yin rang da bi mi ni ji rang ge ni so nyang du din cha de da thong ne du bi ce yang nyong mo pa la xuan ji de su la na yang jo mi ni ba xie bi lu yi den ba jie jin dang jia wa gou su do yi ni mi san la le pa da ne gang xia yi dang jia ba tang ji tan jin de bi lu den bo ma ni ji ba de zhang wa xia wo so
And it says, it is, so then some, the commentators engaging in the Bodhisattva's deeds explain this pride about afflictions differently, but I think the above explanation occurs with the text. Thus, stop expecting expecting something from others and put on the armor of doing it alone. That is, be confident and think, unlike me, others cannot do it. I can do it. When you practice with this perspective, you're sure that you will defeat the afflictions, that they will never defeat you, and you consider that it would be a mistake to abandon your commitment after a while. So train yourself until your mind is steadfast in the desire to finish everything to which you have committed yourself after you have carefully examined whatever you can do it. Whether you can do it, sorry.
de la ja re de de ji ro xiong ha man de xie jiang mong bo du yin na ya da je ro mo che ge dan da rang de xie de ji gen du song ye de ji de la xian ji re wa nge ju bu che to go re seng yi guo cha go li lo go go se de nga zo gi ma go go se de ni nga zo ma de jin do go na guo cha kan se de ro wa dong bo de.
So here now it says let's stop expecting something from others and put on the armor of doing alone. So you should put on the armor, and you are so confident. But when if you are engaged, if you are about to go to a war or the battle, if you have a very quality armor, so then you are so confident that you will not be harmed by your enemies. So that's why here it says you should put on the armor and have the motivations of doing this alone by myself.
de ya ye ju men de rang ge ni so se bi den cha se de nga so lo le din che ta nga so lo le tan da de se mo cha de nga so shu cha gi den ja ge ma re jin se sa na to ne ga ja ne lo le din che ne ba dang en lo le guo cha se ne nga so zhuo se ne re ga je lo le din che ne guo ta.
So then it says, that is, be confident that think, unlike me, others cannot do it. So therefore, this is kind of confidence should be cultivated by us. But this such confidence will be cultivated by means of meditating and familiarizing yourself with such practice.
맞아, 지름이 따를 드려야 지름이 뭐네 때문에 증에나 실은이 투시어 시신데 나도人년조 된당 된 생이 근데 지고 월서 그러와 소소 된수 된바.
So here now Lama Tsongkhapa, if someone who consider him or herself as the followers of the Lama Tsongkhapa should have a very peaceful manner, like a conduct, by following the conducts of the Sharbaka, but then your inner quality must be constituted with inner quality must be consist with two stages, and this will become so confident that whatever the practice you may do, you will become so confident that you can follow the practice and you can achieve the result by means of your practice.
다도서 강제 여다 통해 단지 뭐기 추 파 님을 카디잖아 추는 디나양의 제모통이지 제거해서 아니 당자의 쇼소는 님이 되다 대신 여여선의 산나don에 당자 타마 신지바도 enge 로텔 디나양도 와지 제거민선에 로는 영화 마트지 봐도 아니 미바치나 강소도.
So therefore one should always practice, constantly by following your commitment, whatever the commitment that you may have to practice, and do not, abandon your commitment, but following your commitment. This can only be done by means of constant practice.
나 던지기 단지 떠송도 내 가이 떠생인데 강디는 문도 선수 또 안도도 가이 또 떠인도 다 가이 떠네 손도 가이 떠지바네 대다 dimba 잡아 매비 답지 전주 맞제바 제진 무도비 템보 무도비 템비 떠상 나제제 떠주네 동보 주비체 주비체양 가진된 주바 슈비 체양 레데이 초초바 미네베 몽오베 삼바네 가이 떠 임베 대체바 샤오 손도 가이 떠 임모도.
So here now talks about developing the power of joy. You develop the power of joy after the power of aspiration, and intense yearning produces a joyous perseverance not previously present, and you have achieved the power of steadfastness, also already developed to be irreversible. The power of joy means that when you first engage in an activities, you do it joyfully, and once you have engaged, you have a sense of being insatiable, in that you do not want to discontinue the activities. With respect to how to develop the sense of insatiability, so engaging in the Bodhisattva deed sets.
단지 가서게 동보텔 maybe 제비 아니 마체바 시그레 아니 템비 따기 템데 데그레 마도바 시그레 아니 주비 체야 나도 야 무슈바 시그레 아니 슈비 체나야 초메 제바 진정 투그레 세인데 된트게 베나 약간 뭐지 소소게 혼도도 제 사셔야나 코로기 제 디기 제마도 제 파타유디 라니라 지 가보지 않는 해그로.
So here now we talked about how we have already covered developing the power of aspiration, then developing the power of steadfastness, then developing the power of joy, and so forth. So if one is able to have all this cultivated and by means of one's practice, then whenever one engages in the practice, one will continue to practice with the insatiable desire for gaining and knowing more about the practice of joyous perseverance.
Teach. Ko pay kono ko devodo. Tell me more be two generashi Japan, so the Mongobi 1,000 Mongobane. Semi danger, Dobata, T. Shawi Lekangi, let the Lanish, Shenjate, let the Mongo Gawasha, Shesumbata, Shipano, Semoi Lelang, Momba, Meban Jubatan Jai, Lojebala, Beba Shao, Beba Wo, so.
For here now it says, with respect to how to develop the sense of insatiability, engaging the bodhisattva, it says, like those who want to pleasure the result from play, bodhisattvas are passionate about any activities they have to do. Insatiable, they take joy in the work.
Lisa.
No.
That's not there. Gaboyana Mumbai Maroa. Gaboyana Mongoba says on Jesus saying, Pukasi Yashana, Detung Echidoa. Then I Chedang Mumba maybe saying it, Tantiso say, Mechiroa. Gashing trust in the Shawachil in Shotana, and in concert Mumbai Mari.
So then, once you really developed such a joy in this practice, and then one will really become insatiable. Regardless of how much practice that you may do, you will not be satisfied with this practice. You still want to practice, continuously, and you will, which then will enables you to engage in constant practice.
Jendo di ju leji chang myunga ba go de tame ba non jebu dewa to meto tenso sawa la yang be ne ju na kan la she na jebu dewa shuma nge ba la mus me bi she de sondo ngene lo ata.
So then here it says, so strive with the attitude like that of children would engage in the play without being satisfied. That is, you must be just as insatiable about the cause, pleasure of a result as you are about the result themselves. For if ordinary persons strive even when they are uncertain whether they will obtain a pleasant result, and what need is there to speak about activities with which are certain to bear pleasurable result.
Da tusa se was jaro ka sa jebun dogo na jola be ka bate ta memero tanga so chu ke se ke mare shibogo na kale job se la bro.
So it is not a perspective of dharma, but it is a fact. If one is long to achieve result, then one should always have a cost. One should always accumulate cost. Without having any cost, there will be no result. So therefore, we needed cost to have a result.
Tanga so jiten bi se goro atan jiten bi tan de chen de kan de ji jitan da la chong je wa so mo bo shu che ba de la ke so ra da ma ra sing de ten so ngol le ke che gor ma to ten ki bas ke me wa ten de me ba kan she ji la ka le ten de je gu ya na en le de she so na ne de ba de wa ji la ten so me ngi ji la ka ri chen na ka le je gu ma re so do.
So therefore, then it's just a very beautiful example he said it. It says, ordinary persons strive even they are uncertain whether they will obtain pleasant result. This is true, right? We engage in all kind of activities, just looking for a pleasant result. But then most of us are unsure about what kind of result that we may have. Even then, we are putting a rigorous effort to do so. But then it says results. And what need is there to speak about activities which are certain to bear pleasurable result. So then here it says, even though they work for the sake of happiness, it is uncertain whether happiness will come. But as for those whose work itself is happiness, how can they be happy unless they work? How can they be happy unless they work? This is also the reason why beings associated is wrong.
Putu socha dansi ti depa nanji mingwa na nami dela shiwa yi sena jita jite mo xie somba ta ma yi ro chungze nyongju yue chang da na je sho yi putu nombi sola chapi dansi tanjawa che de chungze yue chang shis donghe tsab chewa debi yinde yi dongwa xie ba la yang ngoba mena na Kanamato maybe Chetan Yinchi Dewa Tayaba, David Soji, Jite Momba Miri, Yonder, Sala, Mungoba, Samba Jeba, Shao, Sondo.
Then here it says, if I am never satiated by sensual desire, which are like honey on the razor's edge, how could I be satiated with merits, whose fruition is happiness and peace? Develop an attitude of being insatiable, thinking indulging in sensual pleasure is like licking honey off the sharp blade of a razor. It is the source of a little sweetness, but it slices up the tongue. And if I cannot get enough of this experience, which give me great sufferings for the sake of just a slight and temporary pleasure, that sense could there be in feeling that I have had enough of the collections of merits and sublime wisdom, which give flawless, infinite happiness, both immediate and long term.
당가서 베게 뿌뜨뿌뜨 세나 그저 인지도는 가려 미시마도 맞아 전 넘버텔라 때는 되게 야게네 이거는 뻑강치잖아 푸잖아 또 상이 til 뿌뜨슬라 그래 셀 개버기 넘버.
So here in Tibetan term, the putti is some kind of very sharp, razor-like sharp. It is even sharper than razor. It says it's very sharp that even if you put one stalk of hair on that, if you release one hair on that razor's edge, it will just cut by itself. This is how sharp it is. The putti we're talking about here. It's translated as a razor's edge.
네, 이제 지색을다 담부터서 간제 제쇼잖아요. 뭐뭐 명예질라. 아니 깔렙던지 전에 되게 당달을 주고요나. 아니 대화 용이 지당가서 가르쳤네. 또와 메주레에서 돼. 배대니
So here now, just for it's very easy to understand because a very very little pleasurable experience. If we put an effort, even to just to have a very little pleasurable experience, if you go through such sufferings, and why can't we go put an effort for everlasting happiness?
다 겨울엔 주나 가시 조심병원에 가는 조거선 대나 가는 주비 게이 레는 조바 사이 셔 대달은 주바 나스 님의 동비 랑첸 님의 시지 뒤스 이동이 배선 주바 답이 로제지 봐도 장와 샤데 대티 레서 시지 셔 님의 님의 시디 동이 랑첸 초티 Sunjuta Le de Lion Juba Sha Sheso Sondo, Gashin the Troshin Juba.
So here now, when it talks about how one engages in this practice with joyfully. So thus, in order to bring to completion the virtuous actions in which you have engaged, enter them as a sun-scorched elephant enters a pleasing lotus pond at noon. Train in this attitude until you produce it. Engage in the bodhisattva states. Thus, in order to finish the work, I shall enter into it just as an elephant scorched by the midday sun and comes upon a pond and plunges in.
다 겨울은 줘봐도 얘는 유명하게 칩이게 롱보친 초는 줘 가신 조신 줘봐 나긴 양 뭐바면 버거기 점무저와 나긴 지거래 손도.
So thus, when we were engaging in the virtuous activities, so here it says, in order to bring to completion the virtuous activities in which you have engaged, enter them as a sun-scorched elephant enters a pleasing, lotus pond at noon. And then also there's another example that just like strived with the attitude like that of children who engages in play without being satiated. So this is the attitude that we must have as a practitioner.
practice Dharma. Gai tao se ge de dong ro de ni ren do de de ji. Ne ta do yi tao ne song de. Sun zhe zang de li sun dong an na re xi nian so ge de ta ma yin na xin de jiu xin sun be xi zun bi ba xie de ji yi xie ro. So then
the power of relinquishment. If you become physically or mentally fatigued from your perseverance, you must rest for a while. Otherwise, you will become exhausted and very disheartened, thereby later preventing your joyous perseverance.
Kasa nge soma ta nge so je che ne uzu ma je nge so che ta nge soma ta zhen zhu zang xin ha ma le pa ta re ta tuen na de zang ji chu xie me jia wa gong ma yin xi xia wa la zhen gu de se de dang niao ba da jian dang ne ne ma de jie zhe ne le ji dong de do wa xia le pa xie le pa xie na xi ma dang xi ma de be de bang xia song de xie so.
Then it says immediately after you have rested and persevere again, and when you have completely finished your earlier activities, do not let it satisfy you. Do not let this satisfy you. Sorry, you must joyously persevere at other higher activities. Engaging in the bodhisattva, it says, when my strength decline, I shall leave the task so I can do it later. When it's really done, I shall set it aside and seeking the next task and the next.
Bena nyanglen kante chi na thalo kepa ki nyanglen che tang chi lo. Nyanglen che bi ko la nyanglen kante chi chen na zhen zhui sen na ta nyanglen kante chi jawa yin na ji samba la thong ma che ji pa do uzu jen na me dewa che me so che ni me so cha na ni me tu ni ju ne je bu de thong so na yang je bu de la chu shi ma je yang je bu ko ma to ba la zhang go re se de shu ji la ja ro.
It's a really wonderful advice that we're receiving in this particular paragraph, where it states that when you practice Dharma, we should practice so by very skillful means, because one should not, constantly practice until one get exhausted. this is not a skilled practitioner. So when you feel that you're about to get some kind of exhaustion, then you stop at this point and then rest for a while, then resume your practice, later. So once you resume the practice, when you see there's some result that we may have gained through your practice, then one should not be satisfied with that practice, but one should have more, insatiated desire for continuing the similar practice later.
되지. 현주기 찌타마들라 심한 되베 대방샤세데 이 텐슈마 터비 된다라 마마들라 주해 제마샤 대 방네 아니 메티네 주 소야데 레도.
So seeking the next task and the next, when it really done, I shall set it aside, seeking the next text and the next.
되지. 셰소하지. 심한데 개체대 성도와 인생 하마레 추시세네 체바 고마 몸보 터발라 개체보지 셔로 성도 데레다.
So then here it says the next task is important because if you consider each early good quality is sufficient, this will be a big obstacles to the attainment of many higher attributes.
되지. 연대 조제 진에 받을 초해제 되나 인데 고마타발라 개체 그래 neuro와 되게 개체보를 성도와.
So one should not remain satisfied by just having a little good quality, just seeing a development of little good quality within one's continuum. So this will, if you remain satisfied with such, then will become an obstacle for your further practices.
근데 전주 zonlu 텐데서 하장 띵에데 조와 잡아다 하장 려바 인가 방네 추위 진전의 나려시 거대 바데마 그지 체바파바 지와라 쳐라 탕레 가만중 데레 추지 체바나 토종 림바 예마치 셰소 기시보도의 세네장 스무 주비 잔다 따브노 샹비 샹이다 샹이 잔다 라다 tombo 소데네 자파 말레 지바도 데 대전도 소데 윤세네 시고 변나 시 야마레 시게 수데네 마데바 신베 녀도 신 조에 티레 총신 데베 마 신바다부 셰송소 소도.
Then here now says the above presentation shows how to joyously persevere. Do not over-relax yourself. You must avoid both being overly intense and being overly relaxed. So make your effort continuous like a river. The glorious Matistas praised in 150 verses states, in order to make yourself more exalted, you never over exert it or relax too much. Thus, your good qualities are indistinguishable by former and later phrase. Plato also said, the Scots, so by Simondua, for instance, never get there, but the Scots of Chekova take their time at the start and pursue the robbers until they reach them. Likewise, practice at a measured pace that you can sustain. For example, a lotus produce at a modest pace but never stops. So it soon arrives, whereas the flea takes great successive leaps and then stops, so it never gets there.
哎呀，这别等你们得写去，他对谁也才想。对，当我做的，就是你人的啥的现在的，当去的特别偏什么，等这一偏的对比，就是就当一张，那个从刚刚上去那个，别啥全部现在的给全部，不对，你主要的这边关的，这样等这一给我啥吧，这准备的从头啥的给我那手机的当呢，你跑着的先把中央是那呢，你都我不怎么上去吧，他呢，他也比生煎呢，你都我不怎么上去有啥了。你过头啊，即将的消费些你嘛用别的水平，对吧？特别我们这边，那么那就现在老多说现在的我当，你行了的学的。
Let's do our dedications. By means of gathering here today for 2 hours, may all the virtues that I've accumulated be beneficial for oneself and that of all other sentient beings. And with all the virtues that we have accumulated at this time, or the accumulated in the past, or that is to be accumulated in the future, by gathering all those virtues, may I be able to engage in the practice of the bodhisattvas, the 6 perfections, and gain the state of enlightenment. Having achieved this state of enlightenment, may I be able to benefit infinite sentient beings, all the Buddhas and bodhisattvas, including Buddha Shakyamuni. Please bless me to be able to do this.
念就解将别报月接到前报更多生活点样点见的别到根据即是道路给我得到堂姐罗多别从西边叫我堂姐我都我大姐给人找我的给他让我谢谢老多我哎呀对不起Thank you